Welcome back. Today I want to help you answer the question, what do I need to be working on? As well as, where should I focus my peppy training? And the answer to these questions changes depending on the time of year and the event you're getting ready for. So in prior episodes, I gave you ideas for thinking about where race pace, race velocity fits in terms of your training intensity zones. So this builds on those. That video that kicked that off was called Know Your Paces. If you haven't watched that, start with that, because if you know your paces, what's going to follow makes a lot more sense. All right, so let's shrink me down and put me over here. Now, what we are looking at here is a normal lactate curve. And it takes quite a bit of general capacity and general fitness to have a normal curve. When I started out a couple of years ago, getting back into training, all my curves were linear curves. So as soon as I started exercising, lactate would rise with power and pace in a linear fashion. If you have that type of curve, what you're going to find is that zone 3 and above make you very tired very quickly. You're also going to notice that your heart rate decouples and starts rising rapidly away from power and pace once you're in zone 3 or above. So you don't have this stability really in any of your zones when you start. And where you'll notice it comes in is first you'll get it in zone 1 and then in zone 2 and ultimately in zone 3 for a period of time. Now that time before we decouple is very trainable. And that's one of the adaptations that we're seeking with our green zone training, is to make our body and our fitness deeper and make it last over time. So this time element of fitness. And one of the first things I encourage you to do is just have the ability to keep moving for your entire race duration. Get that sorted first, and then you can build upon that. Now, you will have an idea at this stage where your event is going to slot into this curve. And I wanted to talk about how the different types of training are going to impact this curve. And if you want to go do a really deep dive on this, go to alancousins.substack.com. He's got his book there, and chapters 4 and 5 really get into this for those of you that like to dig into your data. But I prefer to look at things maybe at a higher level than Alan. He does such a good job with the detail. So let's just talk a bit about how our green zone training is going to impact our curve and our bodies and what we can expect to see. So that green zone training is about moving this curve and this first lactate threshold point. So this is the highest power or pace that we can go without our lactate elevating. And that's going to move to the right over time as we do our green zone training. And the green zone training is also going to pull the curve down. So we'll see the curve go down and to the right. And there's a case study of my first year back in an article called My Metabolic Manifesto on my site. Shows you a series of curves over the period of a year, and you can really see this effect when you take an untrained athlete and just have them focus on the bottom of the curve in terms of their training. Next level up, tempo training. So that's going to be sort of zone 3 type training. And this is focusing on our intermediate fibers. And it's going to push this curve down in effect. So what we'll see is we're going to get more metabolically efficient overall with producing energy and turning food into velocity. And this curve is going to lower here. And this can be a very important adaptation for many endurance athletes because hills, pace changes, surges, tactical considerations involve this zone 3. But you need to be careful with it because if you target it incorrectly, too high, or you give yourself too big a dose of it, or you do it when you have a linear curve, you're going to make yourself very tired and it's going to interfere with the rest of your program. And you'll notice that. You'll create strain, You'll be tired for 48 hours or more after some of your challenging workouts. And that's going to be a sign that you either got the dose incorrect, so you gave yourself too much, or your targets are too high. Final domain, severe domain, red zone training, zone 4, zone 5 type training. You'll see the vectors pointing a little bit to the right and up. And that's going to be what you notice. That red zone type training is going to enable you to get an extra step on your progressive, on your full profile test, the red zone training. In those tests, you'll get an extra step. Now, it's quite fatiguing. And is that extra step worth it in terms of your larger goals? If you're doing a short duration race, a 5K, and you're seeking to optimize your 5K time, and you're a well-trained athlete with a normal curve, yeah, it's worth it. If you're getting ready for your first 70.3 event or your first Olympic distance triathlon or your first Ironman, I'd argue that you want that type of training well away from your specific prep and your race. The reason being is that fatigue is not going to be particularly useful for you. You're going to be better off generating fatigue in a way that you can use it on race day, and that's going to be green zone. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So up in the top left there, we've got durability and we've got resilience. So durability in an exercise physiology sense these days refers to the ability to lift effort, come back down, and everything's still normal. And so these pace changes. So this is one gear up from average race pace. Those types of situations where a hill pushes us up, or if we're swimming, it could be a lumpy swim. Waves are going to be pushing us up. There could be pace changes in the water. These types of things. Durability, is that limiting you? If you are a competitive amateur and you're fast, there will be tactical considerations as well as the nature of the race terrain that you're on. That could be an important thing to train. For many athletes and other athletes, the rest of the field, or if you're new to an event or you're stepping up, there's another thing that I call resilience, eccentric tolerance. And this seems to be a quality of fitness that is totally separate from what we can see in an hour or even a 2-hour workout. It's what happens in a race, particularly a triathlon race, where you get to the point in the run where your legs are so beat up, you're not able to put a meaningful load on your cardiovascular system. So you'll see the heart rate go down, even though you're well fed, well hydrated, and you're just wrecked. Your legs feel like they've just been beat on with baseball bats and stuff. If you've got that as a limiter, it doesn't necessarily show up in these curves. The ability just to run easy for 13 miles or 20K or 40K is something that you can't really test in an hour. You have to go out and do these longer workouts. Those workouts are going to be stressful on you at any speed, and you'll need to build them in and build this capacity, this resilience into your body. So again, you're going to need to be balancing all these different components. And that's why I'm always encouraging people to be very careful with the high intensity training that's well away from average race velocity. Might make sense to do it in the spring, but you're not going to want to get tired with that if your needs are the ability to do existing fitness over time, the ability to change speed, one gear up from average race velocity, or simply the ability just to keep moving for your half marathon or your marathon event off the bike if you're a triathlete, or just a straight up marathon if you're a runner, someone trying to get through their marathon overall. So I hope this helps you sort of think about where to generate fatigue. If you're unsure, I would always default to time and green zone training. That's going to be your number one issue. And then as you become more experienced and you demonstrate this experience with actual race results, then you'll have an idea and a data set from your races about the areas where it makes sense for you to go faster. and you can address those areas in future training. Hope this helps. If you enjoyed it, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow me on any of my other sites on my 2 Substacks. Thanks for listening.